Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Weathering Autism. I'm glad you could be with me today. Thank you all for tuning in to another Sunday. Scheduled video Sunday is what I call it. But I'm sure you watch it whatever day you choose to watch it. I just appreciate that you watch it. Today what I want to discuss with you is the autism diagnosis and how we should take it. If you were able to watch my video introducing myself, I talked about how I went through the diagnosis process. Now I don't know if mine is typical. As I stated in several of my videos, my son was diagnosed late compared to other people. And I can't say that was totally because we couldn't find someone to give him the diagnosis. That was true, that there were long waiting lists for decent places to get a diagnosis. And as some of you may know, he was actually diagnosed by one of the top neurologists in the country. And but we did have to wait for that appointment. But that was not the only reason for the delay. The main reason for the delay was I didn't want him to be diagnosed. I was the holdup. And I'll tell you today, that's something that I regret. That I didn't get him diagnosed sooner. The signs were there. I just didn't want to believe it. I was in denial and didn't want to see that something else may be going on. You know, of course, I didn't know much about autism. But I knew that something was happening. You know, we went through the birth to 3 process and thought perhaps it was a speech delay. Jordan had multiple ear infections when he was very young. So much so that fluid built up in his ears. Because of it, he had to have tubes put in his ears to drain them. And so we thought, and we're told that that's possibly the reason for his speech delay, that he had fluid in his ears and he just couldn't hear well. That turned out not to be the case. And of course, that wasn't the only symptom that he had. You know, I delayed the process. And what I would advise people now to do is get the diagnosis right away. My sister Jocelyn Miller Hayes did an interview with me about a month ago. And she talked about in that interview how we should not be afraid of the diagnosis. And I thought that was so profound that she said that, because I was fearful. I was afraid of the diagnosis. I was afraid of what that meant for my son. The whole stigma tied to autism. But I tell you what, I've learned so much. I've learned so much since he's become older, even since I've started Moms of Exceptional Children with Autism, just talking to other mothers and seeing their attitude, coming to understand their attitude about autism, Jocelyn included, because I didn't have a good attitude when it came to autism and what it meant for my son and for our family. Wish I had known some of these things sooner. Then, you know, I try to be as honest and transparent as I can be with these videos and with any posts that I put up. And to be transparent right now, you know, I did my son a disservice. I missed out on so much. I should have taken the time to enjoy him as he was, instead of trying to figure out, oh, we gotta find a way to fix him. I gotta find a way to fix him. I gotta find a way for him to be healed of this thing called autism. Much joy that he has brought to my life, and the addition that he has been to our family. I've learned so much about life through the eyes of my son. I really have. And you know, I wish I had come to this conclusion sooner. I really do. Even though there were difficult days, but I think things didn't have to be as difficult as they were if my attitude was different. I often looked at my son as an autistic child. Sometimes we use that verbiage, an autistic child, instead of a child with autism. A child who happens to have autism, and just to tap into, all that he is, all the wonder, the greatness that he is. I missed out on so much. And so I would tell any mom, if you suspect that your child has autism, and we know that there's symptoms in a child's life that may look like autism, may mirror it, and it's not really autism. And it's a good way to kind of rule things out. If you get a decent clinician, a neurologist that will do the diagnosis. For me, if you heard my story years ago, this particular neurologist had to add a bunch of stuff on top of the diagnosis. And I believe that's because they were still learning about it. There was still a lot that she did not know. Even though she was becoming a specialist in autism, there was still so much to learn about it. And so, there was a bunch of negativity. And people are afraid of the labeling, your child being labeled. But every expert and every family that has gone through this, the number one thing that they suggest, if you want to see your child reach their full potential, is early intervention. To get the diagnosis and get early intervention as quick as possible. And, I hate to think of maybe the things that my son missed out on growing into and developing into if I didn't act sooner. Because I was so caught up in me and trying to fix things. That's what we as mothers do. We try to fix stuff, not realizing that maybe it didn't need to be fixed. Take a look at this.
We have another health alert now. It's about an alarming spike in the number of children diagnosed with autism. New data just released by the CDC shows a 15% jump in just 2 years. Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jen Ashton is here with the details. So walk us through what the CDC found, what it means.
Right. Big headline, George, from the CDC. They track the rates of autism roughly every 2 years. And over the last 2 years, they've seen a concerning jump. It used to be overall incidence of 1 in 69. Now it's jumped to 1 in 58. They looked at 11 sites throughout the country and 8-year-olds at those sites. So it's not representative of the rates overall in the entire country. There are big state-by-state differences. But again, that's concerning numbers.
So does it mean there's more autism or just better testing?
That's the key question. The short answer is we don't know. There definitely is better diagnosis, and they saw particularly an increased rate of diagnosis amongst African American and Hispanic children, which is good and bad because we know that early diagnosis is so important for treatment and intervention and prognosis. But again, we're more aware of it, so diagnostic methods are definitely better, but they vary. New Jersey has much higher rates than Arkansas, so they're obviously able to detect, screen, and diagnose in some states better than others.
What are the most important things for people to know about autism?
I think there are 3 things. Number one, parents know the signs and symptoms. Basic milestones to be aware of are basically no smiling by 6 months of age, no babbling by 1 year of age. Pediatricians are looking at this closely and checking multiple times. The second thing, George, we really should be using appropriate language here, not only for the condition, but for sensitivity reasons. This is not an autistic child. It's a child with autism. You wouldn't
that
say
makes a huge difference.
And it's medically accurate. You wouldn't say a cancerous patient. And then we have to remember that as we hear about these numbers in children going up, they will become adults living with autism. And as a society, from a public health standpoint, we have to be ready to support that. And again, early intervention, so important.
I want to thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of Weathering Autism. You guys have a good one, and see you next time. Bye-bye.